Welcome to TradeTheNBA.com. This is John Sports for the 21st, and well, the shortest day of the year coming. This started off relatively ugly, but ended pretty much exactly where it started. We opened up, well, and of course we talked about this. Once we got below the ABM yellow, the 46.13 became the key. As we opened up, we were slightly above it, and then immediately dipped below it in futures, and that was the end of it, and we just kept going up below the 61. But as we approached the 50%, caught a lot of interest buying, and that's where it started to scoop up slowly, and that's usually an indication where you're getting bigger buyers because they're just willing to take little nibbles and keep things pretty much where they are, and then towards the end of that they just start loading up, and that's when it explodes back up. So that made a significant move, but this is not a pretty reading from an NBI standpoint. White over red on the NBI, and following magenta yellow. Now, if the magenta pops up here at the time where the white and magenta meet, that becomes very bullish. So we can see the turnaround. Again, it's the 46.13 makes it pretty clear about that. Turns around to go to a positive note. Shakeout moving negative, which is always interesting, and you have that split of steel dipping below, cyan on the DOC, with orange popping above, and green has already been below. So midterm buyers fading out as well as short-term, but still enough to lift things back up. So not horrible from a bull standpoint from that aspect. And same thing, YM right along that 34,800 previous algo level. So no shock with that, exact same readings, nothing different, which is always encouraging because when you get consistency among indexes, then at least you know that the algorithms are working in sync. It's when they're out of sync is when we start to get some unusual behavior. Speaking of slightly out of sync, the NASDAQ slightly out of sync because we have both white over red as well as over magenta, and magenta still below yellow, but much better chance for turnaround from the NASDAQ standpoint. Again, also hit the 50%, went slightly below, but stayed above it, and that becomes a critical aspect because that's the exact same spot that we had from the previous dip at the beginning of the month. So all in all, pretty consistent action from the indexes overall. Gold couldn't catch anything with that because you get some liquidations to cover the margin aspects of things, as well as the euro here flat. It's not going anywhere. The eurozone is a complete disaster. And oil took a major dip, but then recovered throughout most of that. And again, oil set up here does its best to mitigate some of the inflationary pressures, but some of them still pre-exist, and as long as we remain above that 50% level, then I think we have more of a concern for really long term. But I don't think some of the effects of supply disruption, as well as whether or not they go extreme on the Omicron variant to try and slow activity, that can have also an inflationary impact if it affects the supply chain of things. So a lot of variables to look at from those aspects. Overall, I don't know that it's all that critical to what we already knew was slowing aspects and people becoming fearful and pulling back slightly. Bitcoin matching a double bottom right there on much higher shakeout readings and higher DOC. And it was just a matter of magenta getting over the white NBI that took place right there. The NBI Plus took that one. Buy in at 46,290 range, and we're all the way up to 47.5. So that nice reversal for that, and getting back up towards that 48 powerful point to test whether or not it can break above and stay above, and then you get a good shot at nice year-end rally. This, of course, is the Christmas rally. Same thing for ETH. Easy sell signals came in early, and as it got down there, we just saw improving shakeout, and we turned green. What was it right there at 38.20, and moved all the way to 39.50. Pretty much straight up. And we went across for a little while, and then just slowly started escalating. So caught some stability there. Likewise with the 50K. It had been in that nice short run, and then we could see the slow build, slightly higher P2 set up here from DOC reading, and the shakeout starting to move into the better elevations above the negative 13.5, and then we have the yellow above magenta right there that I look for. And once we crossed here above the long algo, even before the 23%, we were catching strong action. Early on, rise of red above, but when it did make the dip, the magenta stayed above both yellow and red on that, and then immediately popped up and then stayed above. So as long as that's leaving the case, that's still positive. Should be able to lift it to the 38%. We'll see if it's able to get up there. It's moving pretty hard in post-market where the light daily action is even lighter. So that's going to give it a boost from there. From an intraday standpoint, you see what that looks like right now in post-market, which is still going on at this particular stage. But if we scroll back to the start of the action in there, was quite a bit of volume for what is supposed to be holiday light, not so much. So it started off right as futures open and just cascaded lower, and then once it achieved that bottom, it was pretty well in, but we kept getting closer to testing it with all these weak MBI white readings spiking. It was just a matter of time before we were going to test zeros each time, and we did. And then finally, a little bit later, broke down all the way to match those lows, which was in the minus 90 range. As we went through all the way down to 45.20 level, and that's when we started to see some pops from buying, and they just kind of let it slide a little bit and kept acquiring that, and then that just started pushing things up, and that's what we ended up with towards the later of the day, mostly green on the screen. Started right there in spurts, a little bit of a dip, and jumped a move back above. You still get the white MBI leading in this particular case, but magenta staying above that 33 level makes that hard to do much of an attack. It was clean when it dipped down below right over here, but it was very short-lived because you saw magenta popped up immediately. And it ended up with the white MBI, but it literally dipped down and immediate return up, so it didn't even give it a shot to do anything as far as changing it. You can see the move there. All under positive extremes at this particular stage, so that's likely to be revisited back down to the 58 level. So it's a nice little pump. Let's see how much it sustains before any pullback, because it can move 30-40 points back up to zero before filling back in place, which institutions would love that setup because it allows them to pick up more what they consider discount to where things have been. So as always, readings spot on with Paint Bar giving us, and makes it clean and easy. As always, though, I will continue to update you with details on the Skype chat. Trade well. We'll talk to you later.